Hello and welcome to the Grid Podcast, the podcast about our electricity networks and their role at the heart of our transition to net zero. I'm Brian Moorhead from eSmart Networks in the host seat today. And today on the show, we're very excited to have a very special guest. Derek Roddy from EnergyCloud is joining us here in Belfast. He's going to share some valuable insight into the work that EnergyCloud is doing across the island of Ireland, both north and south, in the electricity sector. So just to complete your intro, Derek, if you want to introduce yourself then and EnergyCloud.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, my name's Derek Roddy. I'm a co-founder of an organisation, a social enterprise called EnergyCloud, and I'm also a co-founder of a technology company called Climate.
Brilliant. And if you just, for our listeners out there that haven't heard of EnergyCloud, if you want to just give a high level, just what does EnergyCloud do?
Yeah, like any good entrepreneur, Brian, we took a really good idea from someone else and spun it up and made it look like we had come up with this really clever concept called EnergyCloud. But maybe to give you just a wee bit of background to it, it's a social enterprise with the aim of taking surplus wind or surplus energy and giving it to people in fuel poverty. And the concept was born out of watching or seeing a company or an organisation in Ireland called FoodCloud, two young ladies who came up with a really innovative idea of taking surplus food from supermarkets like Tesco's, Lidl, Aldi, etc. And the surplus food that would normally be thrown out in the evening time, redistributing that to people who were in food poverty. So I was in an audience at a social enterprise awards, and I seen the two young ladies getting awarded for delivering 100 million meals, and they just crossed the 100 million meals mark.
Wow.
And I was absolutely staggered by the idea and what they had delivered. And it just, in the audience, thinking about, wow, I wonder could we take that idea and do it for all this surplus energy that we have from wind farms and see if we could basically copy the concept of what they had done. So we took the FoodCloud idea. We were really innovative in our branding and came up with EnergyCloud. And that was the initial acorn of the concept to where we are today.
Fantastic. So at its core, the concept is, for those who might not even be aware, the island of Ireland electricity network has huge amounts of wind energy, increase in solar now as well. I think certainly Northern Ireland, about almost 50% or just maybe under it of annual electricity consumption comes from renewables. I think the Republic or the south of Ireland is a similar figure, maybe a couple of percent behind. So overall, the overall single island electricity market, it's in the mid 40% in a way is renewable energy. And there's this increasing problem now where we don't have enough people to use the electricity when the wind's blowing at night, and these wind farms are being turned off or turned down, and it's energy wasted really. And basically what you guys are doing is taking that otherwise wasted energy and putting it into hot water tanks and giving free hot water effectively to people who might be in fuel poverty.
Yeah, that's the idea, and the numbers are quite staggering, and we still haven't delivered on the renewable portfolio that we have the ambition to deliver on the island and globally. But if you take those numbers, even 10%, the actual figures from a retail point of view are in the hundreds of millions. So for people who are in fuel poverty, last year we dumped several £100 million worth of electricity, which could have been used if we had the technology, the capability and the will to actually figure out how to do it.
Yeah, so when you actually put this into hard numbers, you're saying hundreds of millions of pounds worth of electricity that we've turned off or effectively dumped, renewable green electricity, and you've basically sat there thinking, well, why can we not use this to solve a real problem? And especially, everybody's aware of the energy costs, the cost of living crisis at the minute. I'm sure your ideas only gain traction that the more the cost of electricity and everything else has increased. So. Nope, that's fantastic. I think that's a really good introduction to what EnergyCloud does. So let's maybe actually just step through it a little bit then and probe a little bit deeper. If you want to tell me, so you've kind of explained how it initially came about. You've basically seen the FoodCloud idea. You've a bit of a background in the energy sector yourself. From that idea, then, the journey to get to the point where you're at the minute, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so a lot of people listening in to your podcast will be very familiar with trials and pilots all around the world on demand side management. I call them love bomb pilots, where we go in and we spend a lot of money. We take 10 houses and we show that people are interested in flexibility and services. But really, we were getting frustrated with the pilots and the trials from a technology point of view. We wanted to see, could we do something that was really scalable? So that's what was going on in the back of my mind. What could we do that would be scalable? And when we seen the food cloud, 100 million meals, we were going, wow, that's huge. And it's rolled out. Could you actually do that with energy? So how would you do it? And the real game changer in EnergyCloud, so I sort of try and think 10 years out, when we look back, what were the special ingredients that made EnergyCloud, or what will be the special ingredients that would make EnergyCloud work? And it's all to do with the team. It's who and how would we build a team of people that could actually deliver on EnergyCloud's ambition. So let's put a number on it. If there's 100 million pounds of energy being wasted, who could actually figure out how to give that to people in fuel poverty? And how we did that, Brian, was to sit and look at the key stakeholders from the wind farm, follow the cable right into the home, and said who's involved in the energy system and what would be needed to actually deliver, and could we get them on board? So we approached the two end pieces. We approached the Irish Wind Energy Association, and we approached Clúid, who were the largest housing association, and basically asked them, could we meet up and figure out, if you've got surplus wind and you've got people who are in fuel poverty, would you be interested in giving your surplus to the people in fuel poverty? It sounds very simple, but that's the actual initial meeting we had on EnergyCloud, to bring Noel Caniff was the person, and Joe Whittle, to actually meet up and see would they like to do business together.
Yeah. And as a grid engineer myself, then the cogs in my head are turning, thinking, those are the two different ends of the system. But obviously then the big bit in the middle, it is the grid then that needs to connect it all up. So presumably then at some point you brought the grid, the network operators and the network owners on board then as well. Was that sort of the next step?
Yeah, there's probably a step just before that, where when we originally had the meeting with the Wind Energy Association and Clúid Housing, it's what actually are we trying to do here? So, and what's the organization we're trying to build? And I think a key component, if we look at innovation globally, is what are the actual ingredients to make that work? And EnergyCloud, being a social enterprise, was the key ingredient. We were trying to figure out how to do this, but we were all admitting and agreeing that we weren't trying to make money out of this. We were actually trying to do the right thing. And that was the key component. I wasn't asking the Irish Wind Energy Association to basically give me a letter of support, or Clúid. We were actually saying, will you both become directors of a new entity called EnergyCloud, and we actually try and build this out together. And I think the key bit in the cable in the middle was, if we could get the two actors on both ends to agree they wanted to work together. I'm a technology guy in the middle, and I've always felt it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the actual will and the ability to make it happen. So when we approached the network operators, as in the distribution network operator and the transmission system operator, we were coming with a really good team. We were coming with 10,000 homes, which had 25,000 people in them. And we were coming with the Irish Wind Energy Association, who are representing 90% of the wind generators. And we were saying, we want to try and help people, and we need to use your cable. And we'd like if you would join our board and help us build this idea out.
So you've got the end user, so the Clúid, the housing association, who obviously house a lot of people. How many homes did you say?
10,000 homes.
Initial 10,000 homes.
Yeah.
You've got the Irish Wind Association, who, their members own all these wind farms that are being turned off, which is a big problem for them. You've got the people in the homes who obviously fuel poverty is a massive issue, and the cost of living. And then was the next step then to look at, you've got the agreement, you've got your purpose around helping people, and then starting to look at, right, well, how do we implement the solution and get the grid solution and the grid network companies on? So you've got them on board presumably now at this stage as well.
Yeah. So so we've got the two ends of the cable.
Yeah.
On agreeing that they want to work together, and sitting as a group, we needed to approach those cable companies and the actual retail companies who are responsible for managing the bill. And we basically told people our story, and people wanted to get involved and help us out. Now, it wasn't easy, but there was a genuine willingness. And I think one of the key, as we grow EnergyCloud out and we go international, there's a few key ingredients that really helped. We approached the CEO of AirGrid and we approached the CEO of ESB Group, and we asked them, would they help us make this a reality? And in fairness to both individuals at the time, everyone's knocking on the door saying, can you help us?
Yeah.
They really genuinely bought into our vision and thought it was a really good idea. And both of them put representatives on our team to help us figure it out. That was the game changer. Brilliant. To have a large corp or a large sponsor who owned the cable saying, yeah, there's something in this, it's scalable. We could learn a lot from this process and we'd actually like to help.
Brilliant. So to get to the point where you're at now, and we'll talk about where you are now in just a second, but so sort of when did you start? How many years in the making is this to get to this point then?
Yeah, ironically, there's a book on this one. We met for the first time the week before lockdown, as in Clúid, the Irish Wind Energy Association, and myself in a hotel in Dublin. I'm saying a week, it could have been 2 weeks before, it was March, and that's when we actually met with the concept of making this a reality. Okay,
so that's news to me. I actually assumed this had been, maybe in the, simmering away in the background for a lot longer than that. We all know in terms of sort of grid and doing anything kind of quite big, it can take a while. So that's actually quite impressive. So I think it is worthwhile then, let's touch on where EnergyCloud is at now. If you have any kind of key stats, or how many homes or how many hot tanks of water, or have you anything?
Yeah, so maybe just to bring it from the lockdown.
Oh yeah,
the ask of people that we were approaching. So with the Irish Wind Energy Association and Clúid, what we wanted to do was meet up. We didn't really know each other. We knew of each other, but we hadn't really built that trusted working relationship. And the key ingredient was, would we commit 1 hour every Friday to meet up, get to know each other and discuss building the team out. We had the vision and the idea, and bit by bit during lockdown, we were making phone calls, doing Zoom wasn't a thing, Teams, we were all getting our head around it. But we were all meeting. I didn't meet some of the people that came on the team until actually lockdown had been lifted. And some of us only met this year, to be honest. Right. So we built a team virtually in this space during lockdown, which in itself was a unique opportunity. But the commitment was to meet every Friday, and there were senior execs in these organizations, but we met every Friday for an hour for the first year to get to know each other and talk about adding more people. And the main ingredient that we felt we were going to need was an independent chairperson. So the real step change, when we all came together and all agreed to join it, we were going to need to go out and find an independent chairperson who could coordinate our efforts, but would be seen to everybody as someone who had the governance and independence to coordinate what we were doing. We put that up online looking for an independent chairperson. I think we had 40 applications for an unpaid for role. And I think that's important. There's not €1 or £1 being transacted in EnergyCloud since its foundation. So we actually we've built this entire organization without actually having a bank account set up to make it work.
Impressive.
Everybody's committed their time, other companies have committed their time to make it a reality. But the chairperson that we ended up selecting is a gentleman called Gabriel Darcy, and Gabriel was the former CEO of Board Namona in Ireland. So it would have been a huge peat company originally, and now we're a huge wind farmer. And Gabriel would have been one of the initial CEOs who went from brown to green. And that's the reason why we felt someone with Gabriel's experience could have a huge benefit of the transition that we needed to act upon.
Brilliant. That story is going to be even more impressive then if you kind of bring us up to, where is EnergyCloud now and the great work you guys are doing?
Yeah, so if I was to frame it this way, the first year was really a dating exercise where everybody got to know each other, and then we had to get the parents' approval to go to the next stage and get married. And Gabriel coming in as the fatherly figure to make sure that we were doing the right thing. When Gabriel joined, everything changed because we had to really document what we wanted to do, what we wanted to deliver. And then Cathal Lee, who offered the PR sort of stakeholder engagement, who was on the team as well. Cathal really started putting a shape on the stakeholder engagement with Gabriel's support. And that was, we're going to need to meet all these organizations professionally, properly, tell them our vision, and then what our ask is to get this up and running. Clúid really kicked this off with a very bold ambition. We want to basically make 10,000 of our homes EnergyCloud ready and put the technology in those homes that allows their hot water tanks to be visible and controllable from a network point of view. So that was the ask. And Clúid stepping up and saying, our ambition is to do this. We want to do it. We're going to offer up our homes to do it. And then we needed to go and find out how we'd actually do it. The next partner that came in to help was SSE. So I'm sure everybody's well aware of SSE. And SSE, Stuart Hobbs, came to the table, and Stuart really drove forward that, yes, we can make this work. And Stuart said he would sponsor the first 50, 100 homes from an energy point of view so that we didn't have to figure out all the minute details. We could actually get up and running. So that happened last year. And over the last 12 months, we were really about building out the pilot.
So that was really just the consumer end of the technology, really get the technology in and prove that you can control it, basically.
Yes. Yeah. So
makes sense.
Exactly, but installing the technology and making sure it worked.
Yeah.
Once you get it into someone's home, you've now got a live customer who's looking for, when am I going to get my hot water heated up? But we were able to engage with them through Clúid and basically start rolling out the technology into those homes. So we started, I think it was probably last March, and by the end of the year we were up to 40 something homes with the technology in their home on their tank, fully controllable. And that's when we started into the platform and building out the controllability of those products.
Brilliant. So you've developed the actual hardware that goes into the homes. You've developed that. You're getting that manufactured. You've got a communication channel to that device. So you've kind of got that sorted out. And then, starting into basically the platform or the control center as such.
Yep.
And so how many homes then are you at roughly today?
Yeah, so we've literally, the project last year was to get out there, get all the systems set up, and we set ourselves to a benchmark of getting 40 to 50 homes.
Yes.
When we reached 40, we were happy enough that we had enough to learn from. So over the last 6 months, we were switching on the devices, learning, getting the customer feedback, building the platform out, sending messages to the homeowners, letting them know what we had done, that their hot water has been heated up.
Yes.
And now we have, this year, our ambition is to get that up to 10,000 properties. So we've already started the rollout just before Christmas. I think we're over 100 now. And as we sit here today, we have installers out there installing the technology. But our ambition this year is to push forward and get to 10,000 homes. Probably one of the other key ingredients, Brian, that's worth mentioning, as a parallel thread, as we've been raising the awareness of EnergyCloud, we've actually got local authorities approaching us. So we now have a demand for 65,000. So we have 65,000 homes registered with their interest saying we want to be involved in EnergyCloud. All those homes and their meter numbers have been sent to the network operator to basically let them know that these homes are lining up for EnergyCloud. And can you just make sure there's no issues on your network that we need to be aware of, and that they're now EnergyCloud ready for us to do what we need to do to switch them on and off whenever there is surplus wind.
Okay, wow. So you've now got the tech in, well, at least over 100 over 100 and counting. That's increasing day and daily.
Yeah.
Your software platform's now there, and am I right in saying it's kind of now linking in with actual, real time data coming out of the transmission system operators around when the wind power is going to be curtailed? So it's kind of been joined up to that bit of when the energy would be dumped.
Yeah. So this is the beauty of having all the stakeholders around the table. When we meet up once a month now, we are there to fix problems. So one of the challenges was, how do we actually know when wind is being curtailed? You'd know it today because it's extremely windy outside. But how do you actually know based on the data available from the transmission system operator? In fairness to EirGrid, we worked with the team in EirGrid to try and decipher what wind curtailment looks like from their public dashboard. And we're taking that feed from their public dashboard, we're turning that into a signal internally to basically know we have curtailment happening, and we're able to switch on the tanks. We go back to EirGrid and just check, are we happy with everything? It's not the long-term solution, but it's a really good solution to get us up and running. And we're hoping long-term that the DNO, the system operators, would be able to provide an actual API signal that we can take into our system.
It is an important point that you basically have the end-to-end system and platform is effectively established now. Though there will be polishing and improvements and things to make, but like the end result for an EnergyCloud customer at the minute, as I understand it, I've seen you put up LinkedIn or Facebook posts, the night before saying, between 12 and 2 o'clock tonight, you'll get a free tank of hot water. Basically don't bother paying to heat your water this evening. You'll wake up tomorrow with a free tank. So, as I understand that's, so I don't know, could you give me an example, say, since we're sitting here mid-January or whatever, say since Christmas, roughly how many times might that have happened?
Yeah, good question. So even better again, we delivered a present on Christmas morning for the Clwyd residents, where they woke up to a text message at 8 o'clock in the morning, letting them know that they were just after receiving a free tank of hot water on Christmas Eve. So they actually had a full tank of hot water on Christmas morning, all automated, and they got a message to let them know. But tonight, for instance, we know there's going to be curtailment tonight. So there's a message being automatically be sent out to residents at 5 p.m. to let them know that it might be a good idea, if they can, hold off doing anything on your hot water tank. We're very, very likely to be able to give them a free tank of hot water tonight. And since we started sending out those messages, we were able to increase the amount of energy we were giving away by 50%, because people were holding off heating up their hot water. So the tank was nice and cold, for want of a better word, for us.
Yes.
And then to your other question, if it's windy and there's curtailment, they're getting hot water. But since Christmas, we've had 7 free tanks of hot water given to people. And as the numbers grow, obviously you get to a point where curtailment has a limit. So you're just trying to map out the amount of curtailment versus the amount of time we'll have the energy being distributed.
So that's really cool. So there's been about, I don't know, roughly 20 calendar days, say, since Christmas at this point, and that's 7 full hot tanks of water people are waking up to in the morning. That's a lot. That's not that this isn't just a once in a blue moon thing that somebody might benefit from. That's a real benefit to people's lives. That really is crazy. That must be cutting their energy costs and making such a benefit. So that, personally, I think that's pretty cool. The fact that you can actually, you're getting a text message before your tank, you're getting informed, and then you get the text message in the morning, then basically saying, yeah, you're waking up to a free tank of hot water this morning. So I think the customer interface seems very well polished there. And I think from what you were saying, the purpose here is to deliver that benefit to those customers. So that all seems very well thought through to me, which is quite cool. So I think we've covered the kind of the introduction, what EnergyCloud's doing. We've covered your kind of journey to get to this point, and where you're at now, really. And I suppose the exciting bit then, that I was really interested in getting into this conversation is where it goes from here, really. So from a personal perspective, we haven't really talked too much about the grid impact yet, and we'll get into that now as well. Obviously, this being the grid podcast, but I can see so many potential applications for this technology, kind of the platform, and where this could be applied, and different benefits it could have for the grid, for consumers, and for all sorts of different stakeholders in the energy, across the energy market and energy transition. But I'll open it to you first, Derek, just to give me your thoughts on where you see this going. What's your sort of plans, short, medium, long term, or if you see it kind of, how do you see it evolving, really?
Yeah, look, I think going forward, Brian, the feedback we're getting from citizens out there who are getting this free tank of hot water, it's just quite staggering, to be honest. Like, it makes a real impact. But what we really, really have zoned in on is the idea that there's people listening in here who are thinking of developing £1 billion offshore wind farm, and who are looking at investing in renewables, etc. And if you think about it, if I'm going to invest £1 billion building a new wind farm, what I'm really looking for is 300,000 people to work with me on the demand side. That when I've got wind blowing, that they'd actually use that energy, and when I don't have wind blowing, they'd try and maybe store it and not need it. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So we've sort of really been looking at how does EnergyCloud as an organization partner with Noel and his team in Wind Energy Ireland, or Renewable NI, or any large scale wind farmers. What's the relationship? And what we're really showing here, and what we're learning, people who are in fuel poverty are now storm chasing. So we have people who are sitting at home going, we had a very quiet, we hadn't much hot water for 2 weeks before Christmas, because as all your wind farmers who are listening will know, there was no wind for a 2 week period. Our residents and our citizens knew that, and were looking to go, when's the next storm coming? Because they had no free hot water. So what they're actually learning is renewables happen at certain times and they don't happen at other times. And they have learned that behavior, and they're watching for it. So when we move and transition to scale this up, people in EnergyCloud are going to know all about how renewables work. They've joined the dots between wind and low cost energy.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point, because you keep hearing it especially with the cost of living crisis and energy costs. People like myself and politicians and people that are kind of well in the know in this sort of stuff, keep making the point about the renewables are helping bring costs down and everything else. But to the average man, woman, or whatever on the street, all they see is their bills going up. It's very hard for them to connect the increase in penetration of renewables with bills coming down when bills are skyrocketing. And obviously, if you know the industry, that there's all the gas prices and how the energy markets, that all play into that. But that doesn't, benefit the average person. So I find that quite interesting that through EnergyCloud, you're kind of bringing that renewable benefit to the average person on the street. And then they're from that learning about renewables. I find that quite like a funny idea. People sitting there in their sofa watching TV at night thinking, "Flip, I wish it was a bit windier." That's quite.
But and it's not a made up. It's common sense.
It's
and
real.
And the other thing that we're very mindful of, like, politicians want to try and figure out, if a wind farmer wants to develop a wind farm, how do they make the wind farmer contribute to the local community? And there's only so many football jerseys and footpaths and plays and swings you can put in. This is a real world, tangible ask of the wind farmer. If you've got surplus, can we take that surplus and give it to the community that are in this area?
So I did want to talk to you about this. Then I did say earlier when I was asking the question about the future that to me as a grid engineer, that I saw quite a lot of different opportunities, with EnergyCloud, depending on sort of the platform and the technology, depending on what way you go with it. So, obviously the social benefit and the fuel poverty aspect, and even all those other trickle down effects of that, of raising, awareness for renewables, all that's absolutely fantastic work. But knowing the kind of challenges that are facing the grid and our power systems, that there's quite a few other kind of applications this kind of technology could be replicated and used for to help solve other issues across the sector. And I was wondering if I could just throw a few past you, or through a few ideas. I don't know if you're looking at these or not, but like what one thing, as an example, you've kind of touched on it there. If a new wind farm development's, going through planning, or developers trying to get a new wind farm development, looking for innovative community benefit schemes, well, you might have a local grid constraint there that's going to limit the export on that wind farm. So if that wind farm's going to be constrained and turned down anyway, this seems like a great win-win. Set up a mini EnergyCloud zone for that local community. So instead of constraining the energy, let's dump it into people's hot water tanks. That's a tangible community benefit that local wind farm's bringing to that community, and it's alleviating a grid constraint or a grid issue where you'd just be turning things off. So that was just one thing that popped into my head as an obvious idea. Again, I'll come back to you for your thoughts on these in a minute. Another thing I was thinking of, but that you could potentially use the technology for, a lot of the EV car manufacturers like to, give sort of free EV charging or different perks like that. Again, you could have an EnergyCloud type platform that instead of maybe dumping the electricity into people's hot water tanks, you dump it into EV cars during the night, and you wake up with a free full tank of electric in your EV. So potentially some car manufacturers might be interested in that. I don't know, there's endless possibilities here. There's also the other things I was thinking, a lot of grid constraints and issues, potentially, rather than using the transmission asset owners spending a lot of money upgrading expensive network, potentially using this as a flexibility service or whatever as well, that might be cheaper to avoid reinforcement, might be faster as well. And potentially, I know Northern Ireland, potentially, we're getting to the point where renewable levels are getting so high, there's actually potential issues on the horizon with over frequency events, with having just far too much generation on the system and not enough demand. So again, with EnergyCloud at the flick of the switch, you could bring your demand up and keep your frequency under control as well. So there's a few grid services there that kind of popped into my head, and then things around the likes of EV or community benefit schemes for wind farms. They were just ideas that it was just sort of when I was sitting down thinking to prep for the podcast. I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of those, or if
yeah, again, if you think about it, Brian, you're 100%, like, all those points are on our roadmap. They're part of our plan. But if you start with the citizen at the heart of all of those questions, and you said, what's in it for them? So on the community side of it, and you go through all the, I'll maybe touch on some of the benefits and what our plans are. So we're starting with scale. So our ambition on the island will be to do 1 million homes potentially, because we're just looking at everybody who's in fuel poverty or in social housing. Could they have this capability? Could they be EnergyCloud ready? That if there's surplus available, that we could actually give them that surplus. Okay, that's the ambition. We're starting off with 100 homes, and now we're going to do 10,000 this year. The year after, to roll it out to 100,000 homes, and then where can we go? That's so we're looking at scale.
Yeah.
And if you think about 1 million homes for a second, if we switched on 1 million little 3 kilowatt immersions at the moment, it's a 3 gigawatt load. So it's not insignificant. It's just hot water.
Yeah.
But that's what it actually, and our view is wind farmers and communities should be absolutely working together, not just on, I'm not going to say, but there's no real link between the community footpath and what a wind farmer is there about. There is some connections, but their surplus and their energy is a real direct connection.
Yeah.
So back to my storm chasing analogy earlier on, we believe that people would want wind farms in their area because they'll know if there's a wind farm coming, I'm likely to get lower cost electricity.
Yeah.
Because we're basically incentivizing, or we're willing to allow that wind farm into our area. So they'll be encouraging wind farm and solar farm development because of that. they're getting a benefit, and they can see and touch that benefit because they'll know the night it's windy, the wind farm's spinning, and they're actually getting lower cost energy. And we're seeing that people can connect very quickly if you can figure out how to do it. Second question, the EnergyCloud, we're calling it EnergyCloud Ready. It's not just about hot water. That's just a low cost engagement. It's a quick, easy way to engage with the citizen. Absolutely, when we go in there and do their hot water, they want to know, can I not just get all my electricity low cost at this time? And yes, that may happen in time, but at the moment, we just need to be really careful that we're building a platform, a system that the network operator's happy, that they know what we're doing, we're able to share what we're doing, and we're never, ever, ever going to risk doing something that would damage the grid. So there's a hand-in-glove relationship with the system operator and the network operator to make sure that we've got that bit right. And the key bit there, we're calling it EnergyCloud Ready. So Clúid have kicked off a program, this is the Housing Association, that when they're building 1,000 new properties, they want to make sure that the devices, the heat pump, the car charger, that those homes have the technology and capability to be able to demand side manage, switch on at the right time, switch off at the right time, follow a time of use tariff, and Clúid are looking at that. So we've set up a separate, as an EnergyCloud have suggested this, and Clúid are chairing an EnergyCloud Ready project, talking to the manufacturers of devices to see could they be part of the program. So that's a parallel thread that we're working on. The other one regarding the scale of it, the network impact, that is absolutely core to what we're doing, how we balance the grid, system services, how they're going to be impacted. And EnergyCloud's objective is whatever we generate, we give it back to people in those fuel poverty homes. But we are learning what this might look like for other residents who are not in fuel poverty, who are willing to pay for energy or have to pay for energy. And the network operators and the system operators, all the stakeholders from the wind farm to the hot water tank, we're all learning from this journey. And this learning could then be replicated and brought into business as usual. And that's the ambition there. And then finally on that, because it is linked, voltage, frequency issues, where your listeners here are really zoning in, going, what impact did this have on voltage and frequency? And that's where the technologies themselves, we can sort of see what would be useful. But this needs to be really low cost tech. So you don't get to spend £1,000 on a piece of kit to go and monitor what's happening. So putting my technology hat on for a second, it's driving our innovation on building technology. How do you build this kit that's £50 or £100 that can read frequency, read voltage, offer system services to a standard that if you join them all up, we've got a 3 gigawatt switch, and we need to tell everybody exactly what's going to happen and what security layers are going to be needed. And that's what we learn from these processes and these projects as well, the real detailed standards and how those standards are actually working. There's no point, and this is sort of a personal view, but we can see it. If I turn around to someone tonight and I tell them we couldn't switch on your hot water, it was extremely windy, we dumped £4 million worth of electricity, but we couldn't send you a signal because we were afraid we might blow a fuse. That's not clever. Yeah, that's sort of what we're doing. We haven't figured out how to use the energy, so we just don't use it. So what we're trying to do is make sure that as we roll out EnergyCloud, the ESBs and the NIE, the UK Power Networks that we're going to be engaged, all these organizations are working with us to make sure we don't make mistakes, and they're learning, but we're doing it at scale. But we'll never do anything to jeopardize the network. Yeah. But everybody gets the confidence on those frequency and the voltage constraints.
Yeah, so I was going to come to it then, is maybe just a bit of a focus on potential grid challenges and grid benefits as well. So maybe just to do a bit of a recap, we've kind of touched on it throughout the discussion. So potential big benefits, you could potentially be using it to avoid transmission constraints by just having that demand flexibility service that could avoid very costly big, transmission line upgrades and other things like that. So potential very big benefit there. It could also be used in terms of avoiding over frequency events and helping balancing the grid there. So basically, when there's far too much generation that you maybe can't control that well, your demand's dropping really, really low, and maybe there's issues with an interconnector or something. So that's another big grid benefit. But then, it's probably coming down into the local grid then and the challenges. So I would kind of compare this a bit to, obviously we've a lot of experience in the GV market, especially with large scale battery storage installs, where they're kind of, a lot of market driven activity, importing or exporting large amounts of power, sometimes hitting the grid very, very quickly within, milliseconds type response times. So you have things like, local voltage, and we've done a podcast episode actually on battery storage and the impact on the grid. So you have things like voltage imbalance and your P28 compliance, and various other bits and pieces like that. You're reversing and power flows and things. But yeah, I suppose so. On a household by itself, you've got 3 kilowatts turning on and off. That's not too big of a deal. But potentially when you scale up, to the 100,000 or the million homes, if you were to switch on a million homes at 3 kilowatts each, just instantaneously, you're going to have voltage issues, potential system balancing issues and things like that. So I was going to ask the question, but you've kind of touched on it. I was going to say, presumably you're kind of looking at as you scale, you're looking at how you're going to solve these issues in the future. It sounds like you're very much on top of that then, that you are already thinking about that and kind of designing that into the kit. Presumably you'll have the ability to stagger switching stuff on. If you maybe just want to talk us through sort of the...
Yeah, so the process that we've got at the moment is one of partnership with the stakeholders, and no one has all the answers.
Yeah.
But it's more, if you go back to when I said at the start of the podcast, if you go out 10 years and you look back, what was unique about what EnergyCloud did? I feel it's that team that we have around the table and a willingness to be open and expose our concerns and our challenges, but make sure that no matter what we're doing, the citizens' benefit was at the heart of it. And what we're finding is when the citizen and the homeowner are saying, yeah, I'm up for this or I'm up for that, as long as we can build that into the tech.
Yeah.
And then we're sort of we're looking at it differently, where it's normally from a transmission system operator 50 hertz back to what the service needs to be. We're actually looking at what the service needs to be and how that can go back up the channel to, make sure it stays at 50 hertz, if that makes sense, and that we don't have any impact voltage wise on that journey. So when we take that approach to it, as a partnership approach, our initial engagement with ESB Networks was really, really positive. And what we did, or what Clua did, was they shared, here are all our houses. This is the net, here are all the meter numbers, and here are all the addresses for our entire network. We're now up to 65,000 homes that ESB Networks are aware this is where EnergyCloud are going. This is a huge opportunity for a network operator, because when you do local authority or social housing, you're actually into streets straight away. So the concerns that, again, your listeners will be well aware of, the street of car chargers, we don't have to worry about it just yet. We've only got 2 or 3 or 4. A street of heat pumps, it's a concern, but we don't really have to worry about it. But when EnergyCloud come up, we're actually going into the street and we're doing a complete street, all with technology that can be switched on like that. So we're able to say to the operators, what's staggering? So we've got a transformer A. We know there's 28 houses wired into the transformer A. Even if we switch them all on, it's only 3 kilowatts. It's not going to blow or trip a transformer.
And presumably most of the time you're switching them on at the middle of the night or whatever as well. So that generally speaking, that there's probably not going to be electric cookers or washing machines running at the same time.
Now you have it. So, and this is the partnership approach. So the network operators are able to learn from a large scale, proper large scale project, where there's 65,000 homes. We're able to see what's happening. We're doing it on a 3 kilowatt. We're doing it at nighttime, but we're actually able to look and see what the technology can do, what the customers can do, how much flexibility have we actually got. Like a hot water tank's it's a fairly large battery that's shiftable for one of, like, it's 6 kilowatt hour store, and you can move it around. So and people are very patient. Once you heat up a tank, you've got a lot of flexibility of when they use it, etc. So it's a really good place to learn what a battery is going to look like, and what I mean, like a car charge, a car, or a battery in the home. So there's a massive amount of learning, and you can learn what the technology is capable of doing. So how fast can you get response from these devices? But you're doing it at a scalable model that is actually scalable commercially, if that makes sense.
Potentially what's as interesting as anything, really, because, coming from an engineering background, we can create technology that does just about anything. It's how people interact with it, and how people use it. So that the actual behavioral, kind of stuff is very, very interesting. I find interesting, and I'm sure, the results and some of the studies on that will probably be as interesting as anything in their own right. Is quite,
Yeah, and exactly the behavior. And again, one of the key components that we're finding, that's the bit that politicians are really interested in.
Yeah.
Because we're all probably well aware there's a massive political landscape here that has to be consulted with and brought on board. And they're looking at, if you're doing 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000, if you're impacting 500,000 people, and you're able to show 500,000 people, when it's windy, here's how you get free hot water, or here's how you get low cost hot water. That consumer engagement, or that behavioral change, is something that everybody's interested in, how we do the next bit on our journey to zero carbon. And we're able to show that people are up for this if you bring them on that journey.
Yeah. And actually, just another interesting stat I probably should have put in earlier in the podcast, just to illustrate the size of the problem on the supply side, and the wastage there is there. So I was looking at Sony's 2021 Dispatch Down report, and I think it was over 7% of wind energy was kind of curtailed or turned off. So it amounted to, it was some huge amount of gigawatt hours. It was like almost 1,000 gigawatt hours worth of energy in 2021. Good green wind energy was turned off or turned down. So as an example, that's about enough to power over 300,000 homes for a full year. 300,000 homes worth of electricity for a full year turned off, wasted. So that, there's that enormous kind of wasted resource sitting there that you're tapping into to basically create the social benefit, or there's huge potential. Well, you've obviously seen the huge potential in it. It is a crazy huge potential, and it's worth noting, the all the government policy, all the targets, we're only connecting more and more renewable energy to the grid. So that issue is only going to grow and grow as more renewable energy comes on, unless there's innovative solutions around demand side flexibility, such as EnergyCloud. So it does, it sits so nicely in terms of, it's kind of aiming to fix an issue that the renewable industry has, in terms of, the growth of that industry, as well as, providing that consumer benefit. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think on that side, people that this is what we've noted as well. We have a large corporate sponsors now coming to see if they can help EnergyCloud basically move forward, and how can they be involved? Can they fund the technology? Can they fund?
Yeah.
And back to your point there, like if you have several hundred or like 700,000 or 800,000 gigawatt hours of energy being dumped or wasted, what do you do with that? Or how do you actually use that energy, and how do you balance the system? So if you're a large data center and you're being told you can't connect up more data, like all of this technology sits on data centers.
Yeah.
So if you have 500,000 devices out there, we actually need data centers to store and manage all these systems. And the data centers are trying to balance their grid. So you're actually starting to see how citizens moving there, shifting their demand, can free up demand for the data centers. And you're looking at an overall architecture of how a country works. And that's what we're starting to see, where we've been approached by large technology companies saying, okay, maybe there's a play here where we can actually help balance the entire system by being involved and helping it and improving that balance system.
Yeah, well, as I said before, like, I can see a lot of different applications, and a lot of people that might be interested in this, whether you're an EV car manufacturer looking for client benefits, the wind farms and community benefits, and yeah, there's any number of applications really. So yeah, I think EnergyCloud's probably a name that more and more people will probably get familiar with in the years to come. I think we've covered just about everything probably at this point, Derek. Will we?
Yeah, the only ask I would have is that if any of your listeners out there would like to help EnergyCloud on our journey, we're always keen to get a friendly ear or someone who can help us. We want to move into GB. We've set up, I should have mentioned, we've set up EnergyCloud Northern Ireland. It's nearly at the same stage as EnergyCloud Republic of Ireland. We've got the team in place, got set up the board. All the same idea. Northern Ireland Housing Executive, 90,000 properties. They're on board. We're hopefully kicking off a trial now in the next couple of weeks. Brilliant. And that's going to scale up. And we're looking to do the same in Scotland, England, Wales, and Fantastic. Then hopefully take it internationally. But if anyone's listening in from GB, we'd be very, very keen to get some help in setting it up.
Okay, so there you have it. If anybody is listening in that wants to get in touch with EnergyCloud, if interested in collaborating there, please do feel free to reach out to Derek. We'll put his contact details for EnergyCloud in the comment section in our YouTube in the description box, so you'll be able to find them there. Or you can email us at thegrid@esmartnetworks.co.uk. We'll put you in touch with Derek and the team as well. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. Please do subscribe on our YouTube channel or Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. That'll keep you alerted. We're planning lots more good stuff throughout the year. And again, please do engage with us. Leave comments in the YouTube section. We'll pick those up. We'll respond. If there's any topics you want us to cover, anything you find interesting, if you've got any more questions for Derek and the EnergyCloud team, drop them in there at our YouTube comment section, or you can drop an email through to us at thegrid@esmartnetworks.co.uk. And yeah, just generally follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and apparently we're even on TikTok now. I'm not quite sure.
We'll have to do a wee dance before we leave.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we do in TikTok, but we're on all the channels now anyway, if you want to give us a follow. So yeah, just to close off, big thanks to Derek. He's come up from Dublin today to our Belfast podcasting studio. So thanks very much, Derek. That was really interesting, and wish you all the best with EnergyCloud, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it going into the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.